Good evening. We are glad to have with us Ms. Manushi Desai, who graduated from Campus Law Center, Delhi, and had previously worked with Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas Limited. She is currently associated with a top-tier law firm in Mumbai, practicing energy and infrastructure law. She has interned with Mr. Harish Salve, Senior Counsel, Supreme Court of India, AZB and partners, Amarchand Mangaldas, Suresh A. Shroff and Company, and many other senior counsels at Gujarat High Court. She is also an active blogger where she has interviewed Mr. Ram Jethmalani, Ms. Pinky Anand, and Mr. Siddharth Luthra. So today, Ms. Manushi will be talking to us and guiding the law students about how they should build their resume to be successful in their career. So, Manushi ji, most welcome to the panel of Oro University. And I will start by asking you that how do you get internship in all these top tier law firms? As I have seen, you have done internships with the top tier firms and with the very renowned councils.
So thank you so much, first of all, Shilpi ma'am, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you everyone for joining me on a Saturday evening. I hope all of you are safe. And the purpose of this lecture is to make sure that at the end of it, you learn a little bit more about how to move towards your dream job and your dream career. On how I got an internship, it's very simple. It's more about hustling at your age and making do with whatever you have. To give you an example, most of the internships I got have been through being at the right time at a place, or else mailing a lot of people about an internship and then one of them converting into an actual internship. For example, in the case of Mr. Harish Salve, everyone used to tell me that it's impossible to get an internship with Mr. Harish Salve. However, it was very simple for me. Every day after coming home from college, I used to sit and send out mails with my resume and tailored cover letters to a lot of senior advocates. Luckily for me, after a point of time, I refined my practice. I understood that it's very important to send personalized cover letters, to follow up over calls, to make sure that the right person reads your cover letter and the right decision maker knows that you are applying. Apart from that, it is extremely important to also make sure that they know that you're interested in working with them, that you can be a potential resource for them after graduation, and that you are dedicated to whatever you are doing. And of course, that you will work well with a team. So with Mr. Harish Salve, I one day sat in Google for around 2 hours to find his email ID. Somehow I managed to find his personal email ID online from somewhere. There was some blog that someone had written complaining about the government, and he had marked Mr. Salve in that, which is how I got his email ID. And then I sent him an email. In the email, of course, I attached my CV. Apart from that, I also mentioned the fact that I'm interested about law, that the previous internships that I worked with, which was to make sure that he knew that I had a couple of references, if possible, from the previous internships, such as Anand and Anand, or with Mr. T.R. Antharujina and other senior advocates in the Supreme Court, with whom he would have close contact. And at the end of it, I ended by saying that I would be happy to do it whenever he offered it, which was one of the advantages of working at Delhi University and being in close proximity to the Supreme Court. So that's how I ended up getting my internship application across. For 2 months, I heard nothing. And then one day, somebody from college just came up to me and said that there's a spot open because, he couldn't go there. And that's how I ended up getting it, because someone else who wanted to go there dropped out of it. And the 2-year waiting list, which is generally there for an internship with Mr. Harish Salve, translated to something that I could get done in 6 months. And trust me, it was one of the best experiences. I got to work on the Italian Marines case, which was famous at that time. I got to attend conferences with famous personalities who went there. And at the same time, I saw how much hard work that Mr. Salve puts in every conference that he attends. So it was an extremely enriching experience for me. In terms of getting an internship with a law firm, that's a completely different ball game, and that is something that any person who's interested in building a career in law really needs to focus in from day one of your law school. However, it is not too late to start from now also. With a law firm like Amarchand Mangalas or AZB, what they look for is you come through a reference, which is how they can trust you with their confidential work, and at the same time, make sure that you also learn more based on the previous work that you've done, because you cannot just go to a law firm in your first year and expect to be given a lot of work, because it's a very fast moving field. So they generally take people in their final year or the penultimate year, and over there they will segregate you in teams. They will see whether you are interested in doing competition law, corporate law, litigation, or else there are very specified fields as well. For example, there is general corporate, which focuses on private equity. There's general corporate, which focuses on pharmaceutical law. So it is very important for you to, when you apply to the right person. That could be someone you know in the law firm, or that could be the HR. However, if you send an email to the HR, you have to follow up quite constantly, and they might refer you to the placement cell of your college. If your placement cell is not associated with the law firm, then it might turn out to be difficult for you. But however, don't worry, there's a way out of this, and that is by making sure you have the right CV. Say, for example, you wanted to come in an energy and infrastructure practice, which is what I'm currently doing. We are always looking for more people to join. However, there are 2 to 3 criteria that people generally expect from my team in an intern. First is the ability to work long hours. Second is the ability to work in a team and take down instructions. And third, and most importantly, is the industrial knowledge that you might have. Of course, as a law student, you might not have a lot of industrial knowledge, but you can always build up by writing research papers, by knowing more about a particular industry, and then applying. If you sent a resume which had 10 papers of you talking about financing for roads and bridges, for example, mergers and acquisitions which happen in the infrastructure space, then I promise you, no partner in a law firm, even as big as an Amarchand Mangaldas or AZB, is going to ignore you, because they are looking for people who have a focus and who are dedicated to one particular field. So make sure that you always try and get your internships based on your resume, based on your merit, because it's going to help in the long run as well. And also, don't get depressed or don't feel bad if you don't get through or you hear a no. It means that one particular person has said no, not the entire firm. You can keep trying through different resources, you can keep trying through different portals, and I assure you that you will get through in most of these law firms. I can't hear you.
So Manushi, this is all about getting the internship. Okay. So, but then just guide the students how this internship can be turned into a job offer, because the purpose of most of the students of doing the internship, especially in the last year, is to get the PPO from the firm. So, what should be done to achieve this goal?
Sure. So, step one, you have an internship. Step two, you decide that, okay, you have tried 13, 14 internships or 10, 15 internships, and you have decided that you want to go into litigation or you want to go into a law firm. Then the first thing to do is to keep in touch with the rest of the team which you worked with at the law firm or the lawyer, their juniors. That includes keeping in touch with the office staff, be it the accountant or the clerk and everyone, because they are the ones who have the ear to your boss, your potential boss. So that is the first thing. The second thing is, be happy with whatever they are willing to offer in the first few months at least, because as a lawyer you are generally not in a position to bargain, though I hope that you get a great salary. However, it's always secondary when you are in the initial years of your career. So make sure that you are willing to work even complimentary for a few months if need be, provided it's your dream job. The third thing is to constantly, even after the internship is over, be connected to the cases that you worked with. Make sure that you're updated on whatever's happening in that particular office. If they are working on a particular merger, what do you think about it? And that's what you talk about when you connect with them and ask them how they are doing once in a while. And the fourth thing is to make sure that even during the internship, you keep on telling them how much you want to work at their place and how important that job is to you. That will definitely go a long way in making sure that you get a pre-placement offer. However, I must add that even if you do not get a pre-placement offer in the office of your choice, don't be disappointed. Use that experience that you have there to connect with others in a similar field, to go to your plan B, and make sure you keep on persistently moving towards your goal. To give an example, Amarchand Mangaldas was my dream job when I was working and studying at Delhi University. The erstwhile Amarchand Mangaldas, I graduated in 2015 when it was still one law firm. However, I wanted to intern in Delhi or Mumbai, and that was not possible for me at that time. The opportunity did not arise. I ended up moving back to Ahmedabad after studying at Delhi University, where I worked for 6 months with Nanavati Associates in the infrastructure space. I then got an opportunity to move to Reliance Industries, where I worked for another 1.5 years in the oil and gas sector. And based on my experience of working in the oil and gas sector, I got through to Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas in its Delhi team and worked on fantastic deals over there. So I had a gestation period of 2 years before I actually got the dream job that I wanted to do. And it is a similar case for a lot of lawyers I know. Again, the next thing which is very important for you to know is that it's a myth that only National Law School students get the internship or the dream job of their choice. It's very important to know that once you're in the field, once you're 2 to 3 years down the line, no one cares about the law college that you go to. All they care is the number of hours you're willing to put in, your attitude, your soft skills, and your technical knowledge. So if you have these 4 ingredients with you, then your law school won't matter, and neither will your grades matter. So make sure that you are willing to put in long hours, that you have industrial knowledge, and you work with a smiling attitude, which is what generally counts in the long run.
Manushiji, in many of the law colleges, they have in their curriculum the number of internships that the students need to complete in 5 years. But what do you think, how many internships a student should do to get the success after their law degree in their career?
Thank you, Shilpi ma'am. That's actually a wonderful question, because I did a 3-year law course, and in a period of 3 years, I ended up doing 13 to 14 internships because I was very passionate about interning and getting practical knowledge. However, I must add as a disclaimer that this depends on your attendance requirements. This depends on what other submissions you have. And this also depends on your inclination towards having a career in litigation or a judicial clerkship or a law firm where this matters. If you're planning to go for something where an internship might not matter, say for example, a professor, you want to become a professor, or you want to go into research later, then please first of all decide what you want to do very early in your career. Once you have decided that you want to pursue, say, a law firm or a litigation, then decide who are the top lawyers you want to work with. Do you want to start working with a small lawyer, a small law firm where you can get a lot more hands-on experience, or you want to work in a big law firm where you can get you can be a part of big deals? That's something that you have to decide. So once you have decided the place that you want to work at after interning say 2 to 3 times, after that you decide which lawyer you want to work in for particular. Try to get a chance to work with that lawyer. And so I would say that there's no finite number that you can put on the number of internships that you're supposed to do. At the same time, make sure that you're very sure at the end of your law student career that, okay, this is what I want to do. And I don't have to change midway in my law career about how I want to switch from, say, for example, litigation to NGOs. While it's a very healthy decision to make based on whatever experience you're gaining, I have seen that it always helps in the long run if you decide your specialty early on in your career.
Okay, Ayushi ji, nowadays online internships are offered, and many of the students are doing internship when they are not on the break. So how to then manage between your attendance, submissions, and internship also? So what do you suggest about that, doing internship in the course of this semester?
That's a very interesting question, and I have also been a victim of it. So I'm not going to play goody two shoes, but I will tell you that I'm also a victim of binge watching TV and socializing more than required with friends, spending more time on Instagram and Facebook. But at the same time, if we put a stop on the amount of time we spend binge watching or spending on social media, then you will find that there's a healthy amount of time left to do even more after you have all the projects, after you have online internships where you require submissions, and after you have all the other commitments to your family, to generally, and being healthy and exercising and everything. Also, one other thing to know is that, for example, if you have an online internship where you're working on, make sure that you know with your senior what is the amount of time you are required to spend on research. Of course, it's always going to be till you find an answer, but in law, it's a vast field and the answer might not be found. So it's always a good idea to keep on asking your senior whether you're going in the right direction. Say, for example, in a research paper, if you're drafting something, make sure that the senior doesn't have to redraft it again. So that will also save you time because you'll have to keep on proofreading and checking it again. So constantly be in touch with your senior. In terms of the projects you're doing, the worst thing is procrastinating. Most of the times, the reason everything builds up is because you want to procrastinate and only do everything at the last moment. If there's a dissertation due, we are not going to start 3-4 months in advance. Most of us will start in the last 10 to 15 days or a month, which is something also that you can avoid, and constantly be in touch with your professor to know what changes are needed. And of course, classes are very important, and make sure that you attend all of them. If there is time within classes, say for example, there's a 10 minutes time where the professor doesn't come or something, you can always take that time to continue doing your work, which is required for online submission, etc. If you're transporting from one place to another, which takes a lot of time, then I suggest you use that time, you use the smartphones that you have, your other devices to work even during transit. That's going to save you a lot of time. And of course, make sure that you constantly try to evaluate the amount of time you spend, say, on your phones with your friends, to make certain decisions as simple as what am I going to wear today, what am I going to eat today. That's going to help you in the long run to manage time effectively and do whatever you want to do in short amounts of time. But don't burn out, which is the first thing. If you are doing too much at one go, for 1 year or 2 years, it's going to be very fancy and sound very nice. You might think you have something about the rest of them, but in the long run, just balance everything, and the ultimate goal should be your happiness. So that is something that you should always focus on.
So one more thing, a lot of stress is put on good grades. One should obtain good grades in their exams. So what do you think? What are the qualities, top qualities of a law student or a good intern, and what role these grades play in them?
Again, good grades are definitely given a lot of weight in an internship application, in a resume. Uh, Wherever you go, if you're applying for scholarships, if you're going to a top tier law firm, if you write you are in the top 5% of your university, that definitely means you are standing out amongst the rest of them. However, not everyone is inclined towards learning in a particular manner. Some people also want to focus on the practical aspect, or are more inclined towards moot courts or debates or research papers than they are on the curriculum. Um, Law firms and lawyers tend to forgive such people. It's not always important to have good grades, even if you want to work at the big law firms, because what is important there is to have a balanced CV. So make sure that you are able to say why you do not have good grades. It could be reasons such as I was focusing on internships at that time. This is what I can prove at the end of internship. Apart from my technical soundness, these are the research papers I've written. These are the moot courts I've attended, and other reasons that you might have. Also, it's an important thing that if you do not have good grades, then you can separately write a statement of purpose explaining whatever you're doing, what your mindset is when you're thinking about why you are focusing more on the other aspects rather than on grades, and then moving ahead. But rest being said, grades are one of the single most important factors in determining your career at an initial stage. Once you're 2 to 3 years in the profession, no one is going to look at your college grades. Your school, your merit, whatever you got in school is definitely going to be forgotten much early on. So make sure that you understand two things. One, grades are definitely important to get through to the first phase where you are right now and where you're aiming to be. And at the same time, don't be disappointed if you do not get the best of the grades, because 2 to 3 years down the line, grades are not going to matter for a law firm job.
Okay, one question from the attendee I'm taking here, because it's relevant at this point in time. So she's asking, what is the best year to start the internship in the 5-year law courses? So I know some of the curriculums mention the structure of internship also. Like in our university, we want our students to do internship after every semester. So from the after the first semester itself, the student goes for internship. So what do you think from where this structure is not there in the curriculum? In which year a student should start interning?
Start when you're studying for CLAT classes, I would say. Uh, of course, it's not going to be an internship at that time, but my father is a senior advocate in the Gujarat High Court, and I see a lot of people who are studying CLAT come and shadow him for 2 to 3 weeks. That means that they basically just go wherever he's going, attend the conferences, hearings, and everything, and that way they start building up exposure to the legal world. That being said, it's never too early to start. If you have a curriculum in place, that's a very well thought out way of knowing where to intern and which internship to take, and that is definitely going to help you tomorrow in increasing your exposure, and at the same time sticking to the curriculum. Apart from the curriculum, if you still find that you have some more spare time to do other things, then please focus on doing internships. Also, when you're doing internships, if it's a vacation and you get a chance to intern in Delhi or Mumbai, please take up that opportunity, because the kind of culture there is in terms of professionalism, in terms of working, is a world apart from what I have observed, especially being from Gujarat. One thing is that when you are working in Delhi or Mumbai, your background doesn't matter. whatever you're doing, which college you're working, doesn't matter. It just matters the amount of work that you're willing to put in. Second, it matters in terms of timelines, how soon you're doing something and everything. So make sure that whatever professionalism is there, you can adapt from it, and it's definitely going to help you in the long run. And yeah, start as early as possible would be my advice. If you're not able to get internships because you have to attend college, or you have other commitments, then there are a lot of portals offering online internships. And especially now, because of the corona situation, I am thinking that there's going to be a lot more preference for online internships given social distancing norms and everything. There are a lot of posts that I see on LinkedIn which are offering online internships, so just take them up as soon as possible, because that's going to help you increase your exposure and learning how to think like a lawyer.
Okay. Next thing which I need to ask you, at what point one should decide to specialize uh, in relation to internship? What type of internship one should do? So specialization, is that specialization important, and at what time it should be done?
So one of the advice that my seniors, partner at Amarchand Mangaldas, gave me when I was wavering between doing a corporate internship and a litigation internship was that the earlier you specialize, the better. However, I did not take up that advice. I went ahead and I switched from litigation internships to working in a law firm where I did real estate infrastructure. Then I moved on to in-house, where I did everything under the sun, from labor law, indemnities, oil and gas law. And then I moved to Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, where the focus is on a very niche practice, doing one particular aspect of law only, oil and gas law. Now that I have decided that I want to stick to law firms for some time, then I realized that it would have been better if I had listened to my partner at that time and I had taken up a specialty. So there are two ways to see this. One is, of course, if you take up a specialty early on, it means that you are very well, you have a lot of knowledge in that particular field, and that's going to help you move ahead faster in that career. However, I have also seen that if a person specializes early on in a very particular field, then he misses out on learning the aspects of other fields, which definitely will overlap. So if, for example, you're specializing in corporate law, make sure that you are at least aware of the aspects of competition law. It doesn't just mean that you're supposed to read up on articles and everything. It means keeping in touch with your friends who are in the competition law practice or who are in the litigation law practice, and knowing what is going on in the field. So also make sure that you have a lot of friends in the legal field with whom you have work conversations, because that's also going to help you.
Okay. So is it necessary to take paid certificate courses to get the good internship or to enhance your CV?
So there is definitely an advantage in having certificate courses to enhance your CV, because that means that you have gone over and above your curriculum and tried to learn something new. That being said, I feel that personally, it is equally advantageous to have research papers in your name published, say, in your law journal or in some blogs which is ready to accept student articles, be it an international or a local publication. Again, an advice that was given by one of my seniors is that writing research papers is the cheapest way to learn law and the best way. So sometimes the certificate courses are very expensive and they might not be friendly to the pocket. And in such cases, it is definitely important to know that it is equally a good idea to write research papers to get the right amount, the similar amount of knowledge, and stick to one topic when you're writing it. So at the end of it, when you have written 10 articles, you know subject in and out. To give you an example, when I started law, I did not have any idea what projects law means, which is what I'm practicing right now. In fact, till 3 years ago, when I entered Cyril Amachan Mangaldas, I had no clue that there was a dedicated team in most law firms which focused on energy and infrastructure mergers and acquisitions. If I had known earlier, I would definitely have spent more time researching and knowing more about the subject. So yeah, it would have helped me to do a little bit of specialty courses at that time also. So now I know that there are a lot of online portals offering such specialty courses. So definitely go through the curriculum, see if you like it, try one course. Also make sure that you do it from a very well reputed college or a online platform. And then if you can still assess it, that if it is not something that is friendly to your pocket, please go ahead and write a few articles, because I promise you it's going to carry the same amount of weight when a person looks at your resume, because that is equally important.
Okay. Now, what are your suggestions to the first generation lawyers to ensure their success?
So the good news here is that first generation lawyers don't have to worry about or be conscious about the fact that they do not have anyone in the law field except a distant uncle or a distant cousin. Because most of the times when you enter the law firm, pedigree does not matter. Maybe in litigation for a short period of time, you will be known as so-and-so's son or daughter. But in the long run, it is definitely going to be your technical knowledge, your approach towards your peers and your network, your ability to get things done, which is going to matter. In fact, I would say sometimes it's a disadvantage for second and third generation lawyers to enter a field thinking that because they've had dinner table conversations with their family who's into law, something that they would know a little bit more. Because once you enter the law firm from the day one, like when you're working in school, when you're studying in school, and grades are not dependent on how intelligent your father is, but on how hard you are working and how diligently you are working. Similarly, when you are working in a law firm from day one, it's going to be your attitude, your coherence towards others, your ability to work long hours and everything, which is going to matter. You might have heard that, oh, he's the son of a lawyer, which is why he's getting a lot of opportunities and everything, or else he has a godfather, which is why he's getting it. Most of the lawyers I work with right now are very successful. Most of them are first generation lawyers, and most of them have worked 14 to 15 hours a day to reach where they are, and which is the reason that they have gone there, and it is not dependent on who their father was. To give you another example, I interviewed Ram Jethmalani a couple of years ago when I was a student at Delhi University. And I remember him telling me how he got successful, which is something I would like to share with you. If you get some time, please visit my blog, desaimanushi.blogspot.in, to see the entire story. But what he said was that he worked 14 to 15 hours a day. And most of the work that he did was pro bono. 90% of the work he did till the time he was 90 was pro bono, and he only charged 10% of his clients. He also was a lawyer since he was very young. He was one of the youngest lawyers in the country. But at the same time, he did not depend on his parents or anyone to get ahead. It was just through plain hustling and grit that he reached where he was. Similarly, I recently took an interview, which is still not published, with Mr. Mohan Paratharan, who was the former Solicitor General of India. And he had the same thing to say. His father, Mr. K. Paratharan, is a very famous senior advocate, and he was the Solicitor General in the Attorney General in the Supreme Court when Mr. Paratharan had just graduated from Cambridge and come back. But it did not matter to him, because for them it was difficult to even have 2 times food on the table for a long period of time. And when he was working in Tamil Nadu, although his father was practicing in the Supreme Court as an Attorney General, he still had to work 14 to 15 hours. He had no honeymoon after his marriage, which was during the same time. And he had to constantly sacrifice on a lot of material pleasures that we take for granted today. So definitely it won't matter to you if you're a first or a third generation lawyer. All that is going to matter is the amount of hard work that you're willing to put in and how much you're willing to discipline yourself to keep on working that hard.
Okay, Manushiji, you speak about the networking. So how important is the networking for a law student?
Networking, first of all, let me tell you, there are different aspects to networking. You have social networking, you have professional networking, and then you have some, non-online, like physical networking, where you basically go out there and meet a lot of people. Now, this depends on where you are. Say, for example, if you are in a place like Delhi or Mumbai or Ahmedabad, where most of the lawyers would be of your dream job, like if you want to work in a law firm and you're based in Mumbai, then definitely please go out there and network. Don't just restrict yourself to virtually networking through LinkedIn or some professional networks. However, that not being possible, please capitalize on using LinkedIn. Please make sure that you have a very professional a CV, a resume also on LinkedIn, and have a professional photo, have your designation right. Say you're a student at Oro University, say that this is what you have done, this is what you're passionate about. Use the 500 words bio that they offer on the top to describe what you're doing. Connect with people you are interested with. Keep on reaching out to them, ask them questions. LinkedIn offers a feature called Mentor to use, where you can choose your mentors and they can coach you through LinkedIn. So use that. Apart from that, reach out to your alumni, reach out to people in your network, constantly ask them how to get to where you are dreaming to be in terms of your law career. And that is also going to help you tomorrow if you want your dream job, if you have a moot court that you want to attend but you have not had the financial support to go there. To give you an example, I studied at Delhi University, and we have a lot of alumni there who are interested in whatever we are doing. However, we had never had a situation where students have personally gone to alumni and obtained sponsorships. However, in my second year of law college, I decided that I wanted to go for an international moot court. However, it was in Europe, and it was not something that I could afford. So through a recommendation from my principal in charge, Ms. Usha Tandon, I approached the Solicitor General of India and the Additional Solicitor General of India, who were both alumni of my college, and they sponsored my international moot court, and I went ahead and represented Delhi University for the very first time in an international moot court. So it is definitely important to be in touch with your network, to make sure you're building up the right kind of network. And law in the end is all about references, like any other field. Word of mouth matters. So also your network should not just restrict yourself to strangers on the internet. Your professors are the best way to build a network. Make sure that you tap into the knowledge that they carry and use their help also to reach where you want to, and be in good terms with everyone. It's going to help in the long
run. So what role does soft skills and personality play in getting the dream job or in getting the dream internship or good internship?
It's very, very important, as important as having good grades when you want to move ahead. Soft skills include something even as basic as learning Microsoft Word. Even till this date, after 5 years in a profession where I'm definitely spending 90% of my time on Microsoft Word when it comes to drafting. I can't say that I have mastered the skill of formatting in a proper way or using Microsoft Word to its fullest advantage. We have secretarial teams within our organization who specialize in formatting documents for Microsoft Word, because that is the level of formatting which goes through it. And if as a junior, if as a recent graduate, you have the advantage of knowing such skills, such basic skills, then it is like learning shorthand in the old age, which is again another skill that is very useful, that is still not obsolete, and you should try if possible. And other soft skills can also be learning how to optimize your CV, making sure it's sent to the right people. So maybe you could have a website that you have built for yourself, having your resume and your accomplishments. That is what I've seen in a lot of cases, has given an edge to some students over the others. Other than that, soft skills can be something like debating properly, or having something very niche which can help others, like learning photography also has helped. Like you go to all these law parties and you offer to take photographs. It's something that a lot of lawyers like, that you are able to take professional photographs for them or something. So that matters. It's a bridge to networking with the right kind of people. Apart from soft skills, also make sure that you are passionate about sports and a few general topics which you can discuss with other people. In terms of personality, make sure that you are not someone who's a little bit of a grumpy person to talk to, or someone who's an introvert and who shows the fact that he or she doesn't like to be in a team, or doesn't like to work well with others and wants to work individually. Because in the end, every case you do is not going to be something that you do on your own. You will have to work with a team. You will have to have a personality which is pleasing, which in the midst of all the stress, in the midst of all the time that is going to be spent on doing and redoing drafts based on the client requirements, based on the seniors requirements, you have a pleasant smile on your face, you keep your thoughts to yourselves, because in the end it's the seniors recommendation which is going to matter to you. So always make sure that your personality is pleasing. Even your online persona should be nice. Please don't put up a lot of photos on social media where you're seen indulging in drinking or smoking, or partying a lot. Because the truth is that even if you join as an intern in a law firm, the associate is bound to do a general Google search on you, see how your online social media presence is. So generally make sure you have a LinkedIn ID, which is the first thing which would pop up when you have when someone does a Google search on you. If you've written a few articles, then they would also have a good chance of coming in the first results for you. And definitely make sure that you do not indulge into something which would end you on the wrong side of newspaper publications or something. For example, if you're in Gujarat, don't get caught drinking, and because that generally ends up in the newspaper or something similar to that. Because in the long run, it matters what your reputation is also.
Okay. So my next question is, how important is the resume drafting process? And there is one relatable question from one of the attendee also. He's asking what things are necessary to mention in our CV and what not to mention in our CV.
I'm glad you asked that question, because the first secret is that law firms or any lawyer is going to spend a cumulative total of 10 seconds looking at your CV. So whatever you have worked for 5 years and the amount of hard work you've put in throughout your school life in building up to that day is going to be judged in a mere 10 seconds. So make sure, first of all, that the formatting is proper. It is pleasant to look at. It is not very colorful. Having said that, in terms of the content, the first thing is, please put in the fact as a young lawyer, as a fresh graduate, that you're a graduate from so-and-so university, in your case, the Oro University, and then you started. Please do not end by saying that penultimate lawyer student or final year law student at Oro University. Please add 2 lines after that showing the highlight of what you have done at Oro University. It could be the fact that you are in the top 5% of the class. It could be the fact that you have written so-and-so publication in the student law review over there. It could be the fact you are a part of the Moot Court Society, an active core committee member of the placement committee. It could be anything related to the work you've been doing with the NGOs the college is associated with. But something which puts you a class apart from the rest is something you're supposed to mention that. Apart from that, since you would be starting out fresh, please mention your schools and the grades you got there. However, don't put a lot of emphasis other than that on what you did in school. Jump onto your internship experiences, because that is the second section that you're supposed to mention. When you're mentioning your internship experiences, please do not just list down the internship experiences chronologically or in terms of what you think is more important, but also mention 2 lines of what you're doing there, what is the kind of case that you worked in, and always quantify whatever you're doing. So always make sure that it is not that researched on the issue of land acquisition in the state of Gujarat. That is something very bland and basic, and that is not something which is going to interest a lot of people. But you have to write something researched on the issue of the trend of judgments in the case of land acquisition for a refinery in the state of Gujarat, and the court view on the same. Something which is very exotic and which shows to the person who's reviewing your CV that you've put in a lot of effort at that internship, and it's not something that you've done to gather a particular certificate. So that's the second thing. The third thing you can divide your resume in is the co-curricular activities that you've been doing. Please be mindful there's a difference between co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Extracurricular activities would mean something like sports or something you've been doing in music or a hobby. Co-curricular would mean something which is very much similar to the profession you are pursuing. It could include debates, moods, research writing, or else something like a placement committee or working or something similar. So make sure that you have all the co-curricular activities listed out. Next to it, just write a brief description of your role in doing that core committee activity and what impact has it made. If it is, say, for example, in the placement coordination committee, you assisted 100 students in ensuring their placements, or you approached 35 companies to get them to be on your college placement cell association. So just make sure you mention the merits that you have achieved at that particular place. And lastly, the fourth column should be other achievements or something notable that you want to mention, your languages, the languages that you know, any skills that you have achieved which is particular, or if you're a member of something, say for example an ISEC organization or something similar, an NGO that you are associated with, you could mention that, or something you're very passionate about. In one line, maybe you could say hobbies include golfing or playing badminton or reading books, but make sure that everything you say stands out in your resume, and it is not something very mainstream and which every other person would write. And definitely make sure you mention your contact details at the end of it or at the beginning of it very briefly, so that a person does not have to refer back to your email when they want to contact you after looking through your resume. One aspect definitely is the content of the resume. The other aspect is how you put forth. All the punctuations, all the grammatical errors need to be checked again and again. Spacing needs to be proper. Formatting needs to be pleasant. At the same time, it should be perfectly formatted. It should not be too much near to each other. The resume should not be more than 2 pages long, because otherwise no one is going to spend a lot of time reading it. At the same time, don't Don't let it be just a half-page resume. A good idea is to look at the resources available online which have been put by the career cells of Harvard Law School or Stanford Law School. That's definitely going to help you.
Okay, Manushri, one of the attendees asking what soft skills, you have already said what soft skills are required, but what are the different ways to develop those soft skills? If you can name some of the activities or some of the ways in which these skills can be enhanced.
Sure. So it depends. If you feel that you do not have a lot of public speaking experience, for example, reach out to the nearest Toastmasters in your vicinity. I think Surat has a Toastmasters club. So go to such organizations which can help you build soft skills. If there is something like, for example, learning Microsoft Word, then of course there are a lot of online courses. There are to-do self-help articles also that you can read on the subject and develop it. Develop the soft skills. Other than that, for networking and everything, I was a part of ISEC when I was in college, and even today, whenever I'm doing a project, it has helped me that I learned networking and how to approach big business houses. For in my case, it was Rasna and Wagh Bakri, and how to develop a rapport with the right kind of management personnel over there. So that definitely helped. The best way to develop soft skills, I would say, is to start a project within your college. Take up an initiative between 2 to 3 of you, and automatically that's going to help you build goals, work in a team, get results, coordinate and network with a lot of people. For example, your project could be in the times of Corona, how to make a will, how to encourage others to make a will. It could be how to help migrant workers. I know for a fact that the students of National Law School right now in Bangalore are working on helping migrant workers fill up their forms online, and they have taken it up as a project. So take up a similar project and you'll automatically see soft skills being built up that way, indirectly of course, but that's how most of the soft skills are going to reflect later in your career as well.
So Manushri, there is a question from one of the attendees. I'm rephrasing that question. Have you ever faced any discrimination at your internship place being a non-NLU student?
I'm glad you asked this question. It's a myth that most of the law schools carry, that, you know, when you enter a law firm or you enter a litigation space, they are going to give you better work if you are from a national law school, or they are not going to even look at you if you are not from a national law school. That is not true. Trust me, I have interned at AZB, Karanjawala, Anandan Anand, and Amarchand Mangaldas amongst the law firms, and even otherwise I've interned with the Solicitor General. I've interned with as a judicial clerk in the Supreme Court also. And at all these places, 2 to 3 things are there which stand out. First is, as an intern, please be dressed properly. I cannot emphasize on the number of times that people are discounted because they have not worn the proper clothes and seem to walk around as if they are socializing and not working in a professional environment. Make sure that you always listen to what your senior is going to tell you. You are going to be making an impression on them in the first 2 to 3 days. And that impression is not going to be dependent on the quantity of work you do or what work is given to you, but it is going to depend on the quality of work that you give back to them. In 2 days, if you come up and say you do not have an answer to the query that they've posted, then you have to validate that. You have to say why there's not an answer. You have to build up your case. You're supposed to have a strategy note ready. If you are giving judgments to your seniors, please make sure you just don't pick up a judgment from Indian Qanun and give it to them. It should at least be an SCC or a Manupatra copy, to say the least. The right paragraphs need to be either marked or highlighted in the judgment or given in the cover email saying that so and so number of paragraph is important. Then you give the ratio descendi on why it is important. Don't rely on the headers that these judgments have, but please read through the cases. Similar things matter. When you are supposed to write an article for them, make sure that you research on and on. If they say that give it tomorrow, don't start in the morning tomorrow and then within 2 hours do something and give it to them. As a law student, you are not going to know how much time you will have to spend on an article. So start the minute they tell you to start and do it. Show your dedication by always being present, even at 11 o'clock at night, which has happened in my case. If a person calls you and tells you that this is the work, don't question on why you are giving me work so late. There are definitely some valid reason for giving you work so late in the day. And once in a while, it might sound inhuman, but it is very much important to just help them when they require you to help them. Build a rapport with your seniors this way, and I promise you it's not going to matter whether or not you're from a national law school or not. I can give you several examples within Amar Chand Mangaldas where national law school partners would rather rely on people from non-national law schools who have a better attitude towards receiving work, who are willing to work for long hours, and who are willing to give result-oriented work, rather than national law school students who have, who are just willing to work from for particular times or are grumpy about what they are doing. So make sure that you have the right attitude and make sure that you're ready to give the work on time and everything, and it won't matter whether or not you're from a national law school.
Manushji, we sometimes see that after graduating, a law student actually have a shift in their career. They switch to other careers other than law. So is it a good move? And what do you say about it? About shifting or switching the careers after graduating?
It's a great question, because a lot of students who graduate even from the topmost universities would work, for example, in a law firm for 2 years. They would get exhausted by the amount of hours they put in, and then they would want to switch to an NGO or into policy making or do something similar. At the same time, you would either be studying for IAS or UPSC preparations and then decide that you do not want to follow that path and decide to switch back to litigation or something similar. There are several cases where people are switching careers all the time. So while on one hand, it is very important to try and decide early on in your career about what you want to do and keep on doing that till the time you get to be the best at it. If at any point of time you feel that this is beyond exhaustion and this is definitely not helping you in being happy and satisfied with your fulfillment of personal goals, then please be brave enough to shift out of it rather than going into depression, which is also something that I've seen happen a lot in the legal field, given the fact that most lawyers, there's a lot of competition in everything. So I've seen cases of alcoholism, personal relationships breaking, even extreme cases of suicide happen because of non-fulfillment of professional goals. So make sure you're not caught in a rut or you're not caught into an extreme situation like that, and you shift from whatever you're doing to moving to a career which fulfills you. And there are several cases where a person has moved out of one field and gone to another, and because of being conscious of the fact that they have they've put in lesser amount of time than the others working in the field, they've been able to do better, and at the same time it has given them a sense of fulfillment. A prime example of this is the fact that you work in the legal field, say for example in a top tier law firm, and then after 2 to 3 years of working very hard, you move towards the litigation space. And I have seen people flourish over there. I've seen people flourish in the NGO space also after going for judicial clerkship or working as a judicial magistrate. There are a lot of cases like that. So don't feel disheartened that you have switched your career midway or else you're starting from square one again. It's always a part and process of life. In my particular example, I started off doing science in 11th and 12th. Then I decided to go for economics because I found chemistry very tough. And what I'm doing currently is a lot, it's completely different from what I studied science and then economics. So keep on switching your career. That's fine as long as you have control of your personal fulfillment goals. That's definitely going to help you.
Manushi ji, just want to ask, what is the importance of LLM? And one related question is from one of the attendees. What would you suggest, LLM from a foreign university or LLM from India itself?
That's again a very important question, because LLM is on everyone's mind, and everyone wants to have that extra amount of extra amount of study oriented goals for their CV. So a lot of people are ready to spend even on a loan around 1 crore rupees, which is the average cost it takes for doing an LLM in the US, or something 30 to 40% less in in UK, or now Canada and Australia. However, I must add that if you want to work in the litigation space or in the law firm space in India, and you're planning to come back to India, then doing an LLM is redundant completely, for the simple reason that law firms do not consider your LLM example unless you translate it into more work for them, which at your young age you won't be able to unless and until you reach a partner designation. So for them, it's just an extra degree, and they would rather want you to gain the practical experience with that. Foreign LLM definitely makes you more professional. It gives you exposure to a different kind of a network which you can use later in your life. It can also help you to learn how stuff works around the world, how international law functions and everything. So it is very much relative to what you are doing, but at the same time, for most of us, it's very expensive to go for a foreign LLM. And you will be happy to know that most of the successful law firm partners, litigation lawyers that I know, have not done LLM from foreign law firms, or have done it on a full scholarship after putting in significant number of years in the profession and then gone for it. So don't take the risk unless it's absolutely necessary, or it's something you're very passionate about going on abroad for a foreign LLM. Use that time, those resources in building up your law practice within India, and then moving ahead, because that's definitely going to help you. I personally evaluated going for a foreign LLM, and then decided to focus on my studies for some time, and ended up doing an LLM from Gujarat University while working. So that was a personal choice for me, because I also had the dream of doing an LLM to add to my CV, and at the same time, it was an extremely expensive decision to take very early on in my career, and I did not want to burden my parents with it. So I decided to postpone that decision, and I'm very happy now that I chose to focus on working on my practical skills, enhancing my job experience right now, because especially right now, given the situation, it's going to be very difficult for people to come back from an LLM and get a job immediately. In countries like UK, London, in UK, Singapore, my friends who've gone on for an LLM there also, they find it very difficult to find jobs and everything, and end up coming here and working at the same level. In fact, they miss out on a year because they've gone for an LLM when they come back. In terms of whether or not it is important to do an LLM even from India, it definitely widens your perspective. It makes you think more in terms of having a research orientation, and in the longer run, any effort you put in anywhere is going to be helpful, but it depends on what you are wanting to do, which is more important than actually doing an LLM. So for working in law firms or working in the litigation field, LLM doesn't matter. If you want to become a professor, please do not ignore doing an LLM. It's very important for you to do an LLM to become a professor. So make sure that you do it, and you do it to the best of your abilities in that case.
Thank you very much, Ayushi ji, Manushi ji. I think we have covered all the aspects of how a student should build his or her resume. I don't find any other relevant question here. So I thank you for guiding our students, and hope that you will be interacting on a regular basis with our students and guide them for their bright future and a good career. So I again thank you for being with us and to spare your time for our university. And I hope we will be having you in our campus once this lockdown is over and everything normalized. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Shilpi ma'am. It was a pleasure talking with you and for coordinating this event. And thank you for everyone who chose to attend it on a Saturday evening. You can always connect with me. I'm available on email or else I'll share it with you. Even my Instagram and Twitter handle, I'm pretty active on it. It goes by my name, Manushi Desai. So please feel free to connect there as well. And I'll be happy to interact more with you. And once the lockdown is over, definitely come down to your university. Thank you once again, Shilpi ma'am, for hosting this session. Thank you, Vishwa, for also hosting this session. Thanks a lot.
So we may now leave the meeting.